episode of the Midnight Coder. Tonight's video, we're gonna be sort of going over some of the new structure in code that was altered and changed from an older video. This is from my other series or other series, Spring into Java. This is quite frankly, the library app was put together pretty poorly on the fly, and it didn't really have too much of a structure. And my Discord or my GitHub sort of had it screwed up, for lack of better terms. And only part of the project was being pushed, and only part of it was being submitted. Now there was a bit of a reason behind that, that being that I had sort of goofed it in a sense that I had built the multi-module project in a different way, and I made each individual module not just a blank module. Rather, I tried to be all fancy spancy like, and tried to make the new module into a Spring Boot module or a Spring Initializer module, and the another one into a Maven module, thinking that it was just saving myself a couple of steps. But that turns out that instead of actually saving myself a couple of steps, I in turn made a couple of different I don't know, I'm not even exactly fully sure what it was, but when I went to commit anything, there was like two commit branches that weren't actually branches inside of my commitments messages. So it was a little weird, and so it needed to be rebuilt. And so that is what I did last night, once I finally got my computer in the mail. Hello, welcome, Lynx. So let me get. There we go. So this is a new structure, or the new format that I got here for the Spring into Java project. The project itself is essentially two separate applications within the one project. So I made the single project, just called it Spring into Java. One module is for Discord, which handles everything Discord related, from connecting to the networks that we need to interface with our RESTful API. The commands now, I feel like this itself could be packaged in a more appropriate way, because technically handlers we're handling commands, we're handling models, and we're handling select menus. So technically they're all subcategories of the handlers package, which for all intents and purposes I should realistically make that change. I just haven't. So let's go ahead and do that while I'm thinking of it. So I'll make this one models, and I'm going to drop I guess we'll drop those on in there into models. And because I don't want this tree to collapse the middle at the moment, okay, handlers, I'm going to drop you in there. Refractor, there we go. Turn that setting back on before I forget about it and don't wind up hating myself later. And selection handlers. So our handlers consist of command handling, which has implementations of the commands, model handling, which has implementations of handling the registration form, and our selection menu that we've created is in here, and that I will go over with you shortly. Our listeners consist of a Discord listener, which is just the command listener slash command listener. I don't know why I poorly named it as a Discord listener. I really should have named that something a little more descriptive, like slash command listener. Uh, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to refactor this, rename it, and it's not going to be Discord listener. It's going to be slash, if I can type right, slash command listener. So I'm going to refactor that so that it's more appropriately named. Our select menu listener, there's going to be the thing that's just simply listening for any selection menus that are being happening. And don't worry, that was only a quick little flash of that, but I will be going over that in more detail soon. Our network class in here, or network package in here, consists of a bookshelf network, which technically I should have this as implementations, because these two are implementations of the Glabe Studios network. So our network package consists of the Glabe Studios network. Yes, I apologize for the bad mic. I typically use a Bluetooth mic, but this new computer that I bought um, doesn't have a doesn't have Bluetooth in it, and I've yet to pull the Bluetooth from my old computer. Um, Future videos will have better mic quality. I'm just looking to get a USB mic in the meantime. Um, this computer and this setup is kind of a temporary setup to get me just back up and online. So I do apologize for the bad mic quality of this video. So, that is roughly the Discord package in a quick explanation. The shared, HTTP shared, this is a module that it basically consists of nothing but data transfer objects, because these are what a data transfer object is. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about models and the data transfer objects and what that all means. Because we all know that applications, as software engineers or even just enthusiasts, I'm sure you've heard of um, the order, or I suppose the layers of your application. Um, Typically speaking, you don't want to give what's on your very bottom, your database layer, into just a moment. Sorry about that, guys. Where was I? So let's talk a little bit about sorry, that really threw me off. So this here in front of us, what we've classed or marked in Spring as an entity is what's known as the model, or if you were familiar with SQL, this would be the table name. All of these individual variables that we have in our plain old Java object or our POJO are all going to be converted into columns within the table. Spring and Spring Data JPA will work the magic in the background and will essentially the model is essentially the actual data that is inside of the database, and we don't generally want to be taking that hard object or solid concrete object and manipulating it, because then if we have to make a save to it, that's going to be editing the actual hard database object, plus there is some database identifying information that is within that file that we don't necessarily, for security reasons, application security reasons, we don't want to be passing that throughout the multiple other layers of our application and potentially over the network through the RESTful API. So we generally create what's called a data transfer object, or a DTO, and that would be basically the exact same thing without any database identifying information put into it, so that we can essentially make a call to the database to get a record, take a copy of that record with just the needed information, and then we can use that to pass it around the other layers of our application, like the service layer. So that's why we then create in our HTTP REST, it's easier to see the model here, because the data model consists of the data layer consists of the model as well as the repositories, in our case would be the interface and how we actually interact with the physical database. These are all extensions of a JPA repository, which is something that again takes care of all the CRUD activity, the CRUD actions that need to be done. Create all your create activities, your updates, your deletes, is all handled by JPA. There are other tables, such as an actual CRUD repository, but JPA, I typically use the JPA one when I'm dealing with Spring Data JPA, just for the simple fact that it's what I'm looking for. If you were to use something else, like for example PostgreSQL, you could simply just have this as a CRUD repository instead of a JPA repository. They would work basically the same way. It's just one is more tailored for the JPA repository is more tailored for the Spring JPA interface, as opposed to if you were to do it with a SQL database or like Mongo or something like that, then you may want to switch it over to a CRUD repository. But now this is, so our book object is essentially the record that's going to be put into the database. The repositories are essentially the interface between our application and our database itself. And because we don't want to actually pass any database identifying information throughout the network, we make a copy of, kind of like a carbon copy, if you will, of our book object, and we call it a book DTO. Now, throughout our application here, I do actually have somewhere in here where it is, apologize, I realize you can't see what I'm looking at, but here we go. Nope, that's not the right one. I was looking for a specific reference to where this was used. Because I do have converting, there we go. Again, not everything in this project has been done per se perfectly. Generally, when I do these in a more business-oriented way, I'll have an interface that is a data transfer translator, a data transfer object translator, and they will be just basically a functional interface that takes in the book object and spits out the DTO object of it, so that I'm not updating things in multiple places. But anyway, this here is where I'm converting our solid book object into a data transfer object, and for simplicity's sake, just for the sake of simplicity and reading this, you'll see here where we're creating the new variable of the DTO, and here is where we're coming in and setting all of the information inside of our DTO from our book. Let's see how just so many screens I can pop up here and make this make sense. Alright, so our converting object is taking the hard data object, and it is taking over all of the information that we need that is not database identifiers, so things like the unique ID of it, which would basically be its unique ID within our database. We don't need to take when it was created or when it was updated necessarily over the network. Depending upon if you're working with a company, depending upon their specifications, you may put the updated created in the data transfer object for some RESTful APIs. It's purely up to the project, and either yourself, the developers, the company, the team, whoever that is doing it. For this specific project that I was doing for us, I don't really care to pass along when it was created and when it was updated. That's not something that I care to have public knowledge of, I suppose you could say. So again, when we're creating this data transfer object from the solid data object, we're basically taking everything that we need or want and leaving out the rest. And that data transfer object is going to become the POJO that we're going to be passing throughout the different service layers. So again, when we're in our service class, and I realize I usually would have shrunk some of these up a bit, but you'll notice here that on just about everything that we're looking to get or fetch, we are returning a data transfer object, because those are the objects that we're looking to work with throughout. And again, this is the service layer here, if you will, the service class that takes care of all of the fetching, converting, and manipulating of the data transfer objects, or the or surfacing and getting from and to the database. It makes calls for fetching the object from the database, transferring it to an actual DTO, as well as it takes care of fetching them under multiple different circumstances. It also takes care of saving a hard book object, as well as updating a book DTO. Now, when we're updating it, the very first thing that we're doing is getting it. And if it happens to be present, then there's a method, a helper method further down, update it, which takes in a book model and a DTO, and it updates the necessary information, because we're never going to update the book's unique identifier or when it was created. We are going to update when it was updated on, but other than that, we're just going to update the information that came from the data transfer object. And again, I used a helper. Interface in here that just simply consist of a single method for getting the current time and date, and that's just with the year, month, date format under the, and it includes the hours, minutes, seconds. Now, some of the things that we made changes to were the let me just, sorry. So, the things we made changes to were in the Discord side of things. So our bookshelf command, when we left off, this was pretty blank. So what I did here was, so we go to edit, and I'm grabbing the options that our user would have selected during the process of, oh, also I've changed all of these to booleans, so that, like I said initially, we were going to make this into a multiple choice option for our users. So right here we want to know, what are they changing? Are they changing the name? Are they changing the description? Are they adding a book? Are they removing a book? These are all going to be just true or false answers, because quite frankly, that's just the easiest way to handle it. None of them are required, but we're expecting them to put in some sort of an answer. When they go to edit it, we're taking the options, and we're actually going to store those off into an options mapping so that we can pass that along. Are you, sorry to the Twitch watchers, there's a question on the YouTube stream in regards to the default implementation. Now, are you referring to the word default, like when I was in the in one of these where it says default in the interface, or are you referring to a different? while I wait for an answer from him, down in our edit bookshelf message, we're passing in the use the Discord user's ID, the event hook, and the optional mapping that, or the options that they are passing in. And in here, we're looking to see if the hook is null. If the hook seems to be null for some reason, then we're just gonna okay, so are you meaning will it sorry again to the Twitch watchers, Lynx had just asked me a question, if the application can handle multiple commands at the same time, or if it's only going to handle one at a time. This is you will be it will be able to handle multiple at a time. It's not something that's going to be first come first serve. So if you have multiple users that are trying to use this at the same time, it's going to work flawless and seamless for them. It does happen to take advantage of multi-threading. So I hope that answers that question. And as for the default keyword in the interface, I can't remember the specific because we don't necessarily make interfaces abstract to begin with. I'm sorry, I might just be misunderstanding the question. Because abstract classes are still going to exist, and you can still have the abstract methods within. Sorry, you can still have like the abstract methods within an abstract class. You can't have an abstract method inside of an interface. However, interfaces are sort of designed to be kind of like functional interfaces from other programming languages. An interface with a single method is itself a functional interface. An interface that has multiple different methods inside of it is just a regular interface. And pretty much by the definition of the word, the class is meant to help you interface with something. The idea behind it is that it's going to take in a parameter and spit out a result based on whatever it is. But the default keyword, in all honesty, it's basically the same idea as calling it public or calling it private. You don't necessarily have to use either one of those anymore. Default is I forget when it was introduced, but this might not be the best opportunity to go over that specific keyword. But I hope that something I said there made sense to you. Where was I again? Okay. So inside of our edit bookshelf method, because we're making this sort of like a multiple choice question, the idea here is that we're looking to check if the name changing option actually has something. So we're making sure that the name change option we're looking at is in fact name change, and honestly most of this equals this is just redundancy to make sure that we're actually not going to throw an error. But essentially we're looking to check to see if the name change option as a boolean, what was it, true or false? And this toggle option is going to let us know, and we're going to go up ahead here, and I made a string, and I could have done this as a string builder. I could have done this in a couple of different ways, but this is the easiest way I came up with at the time. We take our string, which is blank, and we simply more or less concat or add to it a pipe and then 1 or 0, whether it was true or false. We do the same thing for redescribe, add book, and remove book, so that essentially we're left with a string that looks something like this. And we're going to take that string, and once we build we have to build ourselves a list of select options. And what we're doing here is taking the shelf list DTO, or all of our shelf lists. So essentially this is the list of bookshelf data transfer objects. And we're taking that list of bookshelves, and we're going to map out for each shelf a selection option of, and we're going to stick that shelf name as the value, or sorry, as the label. So that will be the thing that gets displayed in the drop-down menu, and the value is going to be the thing that gets passed along. So here's where we're going to do some wizardry, if you will, and we're going to take edit shelf, end it with an underscore. We're going to concatenate and stick on the shelf ID, and then we're going to stick on that final string. So that's going to leave us with sort of a unique identifier in a way that's going to allow us to know what exactly it is that we're manipulating on the other end. Now, we're then going to go ahead and build a model or a select menu, and we're going to give it a key name. We're going to add the options to that menu, and then we're going to drop a message to our Discord user to let them please select the shelf that they want to edit. And yeah, that's basically it from there. We're going to add on the action row that is the select menu and queue it, and that's going to return to the user with a message saying please select, and then a select or a drop down menu beneath it that when they click it is going to present a list of all of the all of the bookshelves they have by name. And now when we go into our select menu listener, we're listening for this book. Okay, well, first off, we're looking at the select menu, and we're going to take that from the event. Next, we're going to take what I call the trigger, which is going to be the ID of the component. And now the ID of the component is this here that we gave it. So the menu, and we gave it edit bookshelf selection. So I'm making a quick switch statement here because this could be done as an if statement. I'm aware of that. However, I plan to add other select menus in here, so just for the sake of keeping it clean, I'm using a switch now, and this is an enhanced switch. That was available in Java, I believe, 11 and newer, but we are again using 17 for this project. And now, by default, if the trigger is unknown, we're just going to simply print out a log to the console, and we're just saying that a bookshelf edit. Nope. calling this select menu, and because this is sort of a format that I like to go on to let me know what's going on, is I put the first thing in brackets is the name of the class, and I put the name of the method in brackets next to that, and then generally whatever my error is. In this case, it's going to be unhandled trigger, so I'll know where to look. This is something that it's not necessarily any level of standard, it's just something that I happen to do myself. Oh, no worries, sure. Did you just specifically make yourself a new account on Twitch just to stick with the one conversation, or? So, so let's talk a little bit about what these are, what everything is. So, listeners are essentially, so if we were looking at the form model listener, select model listener, / command listener, these are all objects that extend the listener adapter, which comes from the JDA package, and it offers a whole bunch of methods that can be overridden, because these are all called given on different events that happen, whether these be anything from thread events to member events to people to the guilds updates been like the guild name being changed, updates to rules channels. Like there's a I encourage you to read through this and look through it. It's all of the different events that happen or can be listened for. The listener adapter just literally sits in the Discord and listens, much like somebody that would sit there and watch for anything to happen. And it just happens to implement event listener, which on event. This is a generic event, so anything at all, whether it be, again, like I said, somebody changed their name, changed their this, changed that, somebody talked, someone did this, someone used an application command, everything is essentially an event. Now, we make a / command listener, which extends the listener adapter, and the only thing that we're looking to actually override in our / command listener is when a / command interaction has happened, in which case we're going to handle it. Same idea with the select menu. We're only going to care about when select menu interactions happen, and we're going to handle those appropriately. Now, the handlers, let's just shrink this up. The handlers, I broke this down into command handlers, model handlers, and selection handlers. We could be adding in other handlers as well, such as button handlers, if we were to start implementing buttons into our bot. But essentially, the functional interface that we have is that we have one simple void method, handle / command, and there is no set name for this. This can be named whatever you wish to name it. And our implementations simply implement the model handler, or implement the dis / or implement selection handler. That way our actual listeners can listen for the trigger or the keyword that happens to happen. If I go into / commands to keep this somewhat straight, So whenever a user uses a slash command, there's a listener adapter that's going to be listening for any event. When that event gets triggered, if it recognizes that it's a slash command, it's going to then call the slash command interaction event, and potentially or maybe that slash command interaction isn't being overridden, well then it's just an empty method that's getting called. But because we're actually overriding it inside of our slash command listener, we can then start doing stuff with the event that happened. The models one is just simply like the form models, that like the pop-up menu that can give you the multiple choices, like filling out our registration form, for example. That's what the hand that would be the models package in the handlers package is just to help you identify, I guess, what things we're individually handling. Yeah, sure. The models one is the registration form. So this would be, let's go back to into commands. When a user hits the register command, um, this is being triggered, in which we are creating a bunch of text input fields that we're then going to then create a model. The model itself is going to be a registration form, and we're going to stick in all these different action rows inside of the model. The model is just the actual pop-up window or the pop-up GUI that comes up. The action rows are all of the different things that can be put inside of that. Newer versions of JDA also allow you to put in select menus inside of these models. But generally for now we're only putting in text fields. I believe also later you're able to also put buttons in as well, anything that is itself an action row. But for the specific version that we're using, that I'm just happens to be more familiar with, we're only able to build it with text input fields. So essentially we take a background GUI, stick a whole bunch of text fields into it, or text inputs, and then we build that. And we reply to the when we reply with a model, that's when you get that sort of faded out black sort of layered screen, and you get then the form or the input GUI in front of you. From there, it's going to sit and wait until the user hits the submit button. When they hit submit, we're then going into the form model listener, and we're listening for a model interaction, and we're checking that the form was the registration form. That will be the name that we gave it here. And of course, if it is, then we're going to go into our registration form handler, and we're going to handle that model submission. So now in here, we're able to first get the values of our interaction, which would just be all of those fields that we added in, so that we are able then to extract the username field as a string, because all of the different labels that we stuck in here, display name, asking for their username, the email, the first name, last name, and password, are all the same things that we're looking to steal from here, because this is essentially an array list with a whole bunch of text inputs. So we're taking that as an array list, and they call them model mappings, which just simply contains the keyword and the value being what we've the input that we're putting in. Yeah, so once you hit the submit button to that, it comes into it would be then going through this registration form model uh, model handler. And hey, Steven. Sorry, Steven, if it seems a little weird. I'm streaming to both Twitch and YouTube, so I'm just replying to a question on Twitch. So when you hit that submit button, after the model pops up and you filled it out, Discord's going to send that back as another event, and the event just happens to be model submission. Or sorry, no, the event just happens to be in the model handler. We are overriding that from our functional interface, which takes in the model interaction itself. So we're taking in the event, we're taking the values, which are all of the fields that were filled out, we're extracting them as a string. So this just simply takes in the text that was put into the text field, and we're storing it in as a string value for all of the 5 options that are in there. And then from here, we're creating a registration data transfer object, and we're simply setting all of the different variables to the different fields that we took in, including including the Discord user ID of the user that submitted it. And then from there, we're going to make a quick check if the user exists, which is part of the registration network, which for it takes in the data transfer object, makes a call to the database to make a post to see if this user's registered. And from there, our Spring API is going to simply reply back with either a status of it is created, yes, it exists, or there was a conflict and no, the user does not exist. So again, if they exist, we're just going to reply back with, sorry, it seems that there's already an account. And that's going to be an informal message, so it's going to be one of them private messages that in a public channel, the one that comes up with a little bit of a lighter blue highlight that says this is only seen by you, and we're going to queue to send that. Otherwise, we are going to reply with the create new account. And the reason I'm doing that is because create new account returns just a string, because either it was successfully created or something went wrong. And again, this is reaching out with a post to our backend to pass in the data transfer object and have it create the data in our actual database. But again, for the registration form, our registration model, I hope that clears things up for you, Lynx. Please let me know if it doesn't. The select menu is the new option that that I've created and added, because after our user selects that after they've gone ahead and said they wanted to edit the book, they've selected the options they want to edit and hit submit on that, we're going to then handle that by listening and going over to the bookshelf edit, which was the new file that was created. And this one here I'm going to be finishing up on a live stream because I was quite frankly kind of lazy earlier and didn't finish it up. But essentially, once somebody finishes their command for bookshelf edit, or when they finish the select model for selecting the bookshelf that they're looking to edit, we're going to handle that select submission right here. And this is where we're going to take in the value, which is that long ass string that we have. And again, it's going to be started with edit shelf, then we're putting on the shelf ID, and then we're sticking on that final string number that we had. So essentially this is what we're getting back in the data, and this is what I mean by I told you we were going to take some wizardry to find out what we were looking to do. So now the ID is edit shelf, edit underscore shelf underscore the ID, followed by the available options or the selected options. So the string data, we're going to first take in the value, and we're going to strip off the edit shelf. We're going to replace that with just nothing. We're going to trim any sort of trailing or leading white space just to get rid of it. And then we're going to split that at the pipe, where I can't, the regex for this split is supposed to be a character, or generally one sort of thing to send it in here. The reason I have two escapes on here is because we can't put in just a pipe, because it is itself a special character, so it's being flagged as a suspicious reject. So usually we would escape out of it, but we need to escape the escape, and yeah, I can go more into spring splits and whatnot in like a different type of video, but generally this is what we're looking to be left with, is an array of this data, so that way we can take the shelf ID as the first index, and I created a helper method to boolean down here which just takes in a character. If the character is 1, return true. If it's false, or if it's otherwise, return false. So if it's 1, then yes, we're looking to edit the name, we're looking to edit the description, yada yada yada. So from here we're now looking to create a way for which we can deal with the applicable options. So first and foremost, we're going to make a list of text inputs, or make an array list of text inputs. This is, again, if we're editing the name, then we're going to make sure to make a text field requiring give us a shelf name. We'll make sure that it is required, build it, and then we're going to add that to the inputs. If we're looking to edit the shelf, then we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to add it to our inputs. That's our text inputs. That's going to go into our model, or model, depends on how you want to pronounce that. So if the inputs happens to not be empty, meaning that there is actually some options in there, then we want to take those inputs, stream them into, we want to stream them in, and then we're going to map them out to be that of action row of. We'll jump into that for a second. Action row of is just simply taking in any sort of a component. The components can be text fields, buttons, anything that is anything that is itself a component of an action row. And we're going to then collect those into a correction list. We're going to collect those into a collection list of an array list. And then we're over here, and I could just say collectors to list for that, to shorten that up, but essentially we're making a list of different action rows that are going to get stuck inside of our model. So once we have our list of action rows, we are then going to build a model, and that's up here. We're initializing that as null so that we can make a check to that later on. So now we have a list of action rows. We're going to stick those into the model, and then build it. That's it for there. The next thing that we're looking to do is make a list of select options. Now the select options are going to be basically we're making two action rows. The first one is going to be, if we're editing, basically we're making two action rows, and the two action rows are going to be two select menus. I didn't do this yet off the screen because I felt like it was something that should be done on stream rather than, because I did make a lot of changes with the whole repackaging structure, and all of this is going to be on GitHub. It actually is on GitHub already. I will be also, once this live stream is over, I'll be submitting all of the changes that I made on the stream. So anybody that is looking to get this code can feel free to just grab it at the end of the video. You can fork it from my GitHub. That is github.com/glave. And this would be the Spring into Java with no hyphens. I have to delete that old package. But I will link that to the description once I'm finished with this this live stream. Okay, so in here we need to do a few things. We have our bookshelf network, but that's only going to help us when we're looking to remove a book. Because the first thing we need to do on there is fetch a list of books that are on our provided shelf, which is just going to, I believe we already have that method defined. So I guess we're going to dive on into this next section and start writing down some new code for which I believe we need to make a new network implementation for the book service, because I'm pretty positive that I don't have an implementation in the bookshelf for getting a specific get the bookshelf. Okay, so I don't have a specific method in here for fetching the list of books. Cool, let's dive on into our REST. Let's go into our REST controllers. And bookshelf, we have a way to create a bookshelf, update a bookshelf, and fetch the shelves for a specific user. And our book controller, we have a way to add a book, but we do not have a way to get a book, nor do we have a way. Okay, I'm kind of sorry for this, but like, live stream is what it is. Now, I haven't looked at this code in a while. It's been a little bit. I've been in and out of the hospital, plus I've been wrapped up in doing live streams with my other video series, Midnight Coder. Just give me a second here to put two and two together here and come up with something other than 22. Alright, so I got you. Fetch. If you happen to have any questions right now, feel free to ask away. I'm just trying to work something out here right quick. Generally, if I was doing this video just as a video and not a live stream, then I probably would have wrapped it up after just talking about the changes that were made. But now I'm looking to make a way to fetch. So, yeah, okay, so I'm looking to add a book. So I need to make a fetch method to get a list of books that are not on a shelf. So am I book controller, add a new book, create new book. Oh yeah. So I had to make a double check here to see about what I'm doing with the shelf ID on a new book. And I'm not exactly sure what was going through my mind when I did this. But just to make that easier to look at. So it looks like I'm setting the shelf ID equal to that of the new. Yeah, okay. So from now on, we're going to be setting, when we're creating a new book, we're setting the bookshelf ID to -1. Okay, so yeah, we're going to set the bookshelf ID to -1. Yeah, that was stupid of me. So now that way, when we now I believe this is going to take an annotation to get this correct. Because I don't believe there's actually a way to do this easily. Alright, so we're looking to find a way to get a book that Just realizing now that I don't have some of the things that I usually have in here. Generally, fuck me. Apparently, I'm missing a plugin. Usually, I have JPA Buddy plugin, but apparently, when I reinstalled my IntelliJ, I did not grab that. Did not grab that plugin. Yeah, apparently I didn't. Apparently I was missing myself a couple of plugins, so just bear with me for a quick second here while I grab and reinstall. Just gotta give my IntelliJ a quick reboot. Sorry about that once again. But now, what I was looking to do was I wanted to make sure I can go in and query a way where I can select all of the book options from the repository where the shelf ID is specifically equal to -1. So now, in order to do this, we're going to create a collection. This collection is going to be by shelf ID, and the condition we're just going to say the condition is less than So now what this is going to do is it's going to find by a shelf ID that is less than the ID that we pass it in. So essentially we're going to say anything that is find shelf, well, you'll see, find shelf ID less than 0 is essentially what we're going to be passing in. But now we need to go into our shelf service. No, that wouldn't be shelf service. It would be book service.
book service. Okay. So we're now going to look to find all. Well,
Let's copy this.
because essentially I'm looking to do this.
Looking to find all books not on shelves.
There we go. So that gives us a way to collect all books that are not on shelves. Cool. So now we can go into our book controller. And here we're going to need to make a. I suppose this would just be a get mapping.
So this one here is going to be a get mapping, and look at that, it's picking up things. So in here we're going to put in book slash, so this would be the domain.com slash API slash v1 slash book slash all no shelf. Yeah, that works. Now what do I want to respond to that? Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out what I want to respond to that with. Whether I want an actual response entity, or if I just want to give it a string and say, hey, that's good enough. Because essentially this is going to be well, yeah, I guess it's got to be a response entity. Okay. Response entity. The response entity is a list of book DTO. And we're just going to call this get all books not on shelf for Discord user.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about
This. Now, by default, Spring is going to, or Spring Web, Spring is going to give you a, when we give this a request mapping, this is going to go on the end of what's known as your domain. So essentially it's going to be localhost. I believe we told this in our application to be on 8080. Yes, we did. So this would be on so this is basically where we would go to get to this page, or this page, this location. If we were to go to a browser and put and type, excuse me, if we went into a browser and typed in this address, followed by one of these other mappings, that is where we're going to go. So in order for us to get this list, and when we return it as a response entity, as a list of DTOs, it's going to return it as a JSON string. So now, the good part about this is that the good part on this here is that you don't need to do a whole lot to get it to do that. It's just gonna print it out as a pretty JSON to the browser. The name of the actual method does not matter. That is more for the developers and yourself, rather than anyone that could be potentially using it. So this is going to take it. This is requesting a path variable. So what a path variable is anything that is up in the path inside of a curly brackets. Sorry, I'm still a little thrown off. So your path variable, because you can have multiple of these, your path variable here, we're passing in the name of the path variable, because generally if you have more of these, there's no way to identify them here when you're passing it in. It's just all these parameters. We want to identify these as path variables, and by providing the name here, this name matching the specific name in the variable up here, we'll assign it to the given variable in the signature. So now, what do we want to do here? Well, in here we want to want to make a call to get to our book service, and we're gonna do find all books not on shelves, and we're just gonna say we want that for the Discord user ID. Yeah, done. It's honestly that simple. Now we'll so this is going to return a list of books that are not on our shelves. So what we're going to do here is make a quick check to make sure that the list of books are not null or empty. So we're going to make an if. And that if is going to be objects not null, books, and books are not empty. So at this way here, we know that they're not null and then they're not empty. Because quite frankly, otherwise, we're going to be returning a new response entity, and this is just going to simply be an HTTP status of no content. So, but if we do have content, we know these books are not null. Well, then we're just going to return new response entity, books, and HTTP status of OK, because everything was A-OK. So that's just how simple that is. And that's going to return a list of all of the books that we have that are not on an existing shelf. So we can make a call to this from our Discord bot. We'll go back to our bookshelf network, and we're going to have this honestly be pretty much the same thing as this. It's basically going to be the same idea as this. So save ourselves some time. Copy that. Drop it down here. Except this is going to be a list of just straight up book DTOs. And so it's going to make a get request. Okay. So if the return is not okay, do this, otherwise return. Perfect. Get books for user not on shelf. Okay, so now we're going to make another little quick call here. This is now a way to check to see books that are from a bookshelf. So now we're going to go back here, and we want to
That's something else I did not do. But we'll just grab that right quick from here. There we go. So now we have a way to get the books from here, and I want to make sure that it's not null. So if objects not null books so we have a list. So now the next thing we want to do is now map the list of books that we have into select options. And then we're going to do the same thing for removing a book, except we're going to be looking for all the books that are on a shelf for a user. I'm starting to think I might need a little bit of a caffeine refresh. Okay. Okay. So the selects are going to be an option of select options. So select option of. So what we're looking to pass over here is technically so now the value is the sort of the key that's packed or passed from this specific select option that we will identify it with. These need to be unique, as you can't reuse the same one twice. But now
where we're looking to the specific thing that we're looking to do here is find out an ID, find out a value, a unique identifier basically for this book. I could use again the name of the book as the value, but I'm feeling more like book to add and concatenating the I can't say that I want. I can't specify saying that I want to take the ISBN 10 or the 13 because some will have a 13 but not a 10 and vice versa. Now there is a limitation to 100 characters for what you can fit. What you can fit here. So. We've got the same author too, I can't go by that. Well, might just have to put the title there twice. So I'll do a select.add. Alright, so now what we're doing here is same idea as before. We're taking the book, streaming it in, mapping it. We're taking the DTO object, selection.of. So we're mapping it to a select model, and then we're going to collect those all to an array list. And that is what selects is going to be equal to. Okay, yeah, well. Okay, we're just going to call this options, actually. So next we're going to say select dot add all options, because I'm looking to add them, not set it to that. Okay, so next we're going to be looking to do a similar function to this, except we're going to be looking to take in a shelf ID. So we're going to go back into the book controller, where we have this. Sorry, we're looking to go back into the bookshelf controller. And technically, I'm looking to then get all of the books for a specific shelf. Which technically, I guess I could technically use that in here. This is looking for a specific shelf here. And up here I'm looking to find all for shelf ID for user. Look at that. I've already wrote that. I already wrote that out for myself. So alright, so there's another. So this one here will now fetch and request them for the shelf ID. And I like to be more specific with this, so we're going to be more specific with this. Again, I could. That's the thing right there. If your variable name here is the same as the one up here, then that's fine. That could be your path variable name. You don't need to add this extra. But if you wanted to say, call this one DID, did, you can put in here path variable did is long Discord ID. It's just you can shorthand it up there for the sake of it. Now, sorry about that, I had to sneeze. So now, next, next on the list here is to make a call to this method. So now we go back to our shelf edit, or bookshelf network, sorry. So we're gonna copy this and drop it down here. Bookshelves for user on shelf. Alright, so this is going to concatenate a string books all DD, digit, digit, decimal, decimal, double, double, whatever the hell you want to call it. It's going to take in a shelf ID and a Discord ID so that we have the proper formatting for our controller, shelf ID, Discord ID. It's going to make the get to that, and it's going to return us all shelves, or all books for a given shelf. So now in our edit shelf, we're pretty much doing the same thing but calling it on different. Okay, so this is kit books for user on shelf. Shelf ID. Okay, so now if we're looking to edit a remove book, we're now going to make a fetch for make a fetch for list for the books that are on this shelf, and if the books happen to not be null, then we're going to make a selection of adding the books to the books. And la 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 la. Okay. So next, if selects are not null, we need to build an action row of the select menu. So now essentially here we're looking to pretty much do what we did up top. We're looking to select stream map action row of fuck you then. Okay, so for each Sorry for my long quiet here, guys. I just, to anyone that's listening here, I apologize for my silence. I've been kind of working out how I've been doing this, how I was going to be doing this, and yeah, I got a few things a little backwards here. Let me just, I gotta fix a few things up here. I apologize. So I'm looking to make a select menu here. Um, this select menu is going to be add book. Or we'll keep on track with this. Edit, add book. And we're going to add some options, which are going to be quite literally the options that we had here, and we're then going to build it. So they're then going to go to menus, add book. Okay, so we're going to do that, and now we're going to come down to yeah. This is our remove book menus. We'll call that remove book. So now our menus are being was thinking about when I was doing this earlier. Alright, so we know that the menus are now not null. We also know that our model is not null. So we're adding a book, adding a book, model, so menus are not null. So if menus are not null, so if objects non-null model so if the Jesus, got myself all sorts of confused on this one here, guys. I do apologize for that horseshit. apologize for my little issue here with my myself more than anything. I gotta top up my coffee. It's been 2 hours since I've had some. Alright, so. The array list of select menus are not null, so we got the select menu. So first off, the model is not null. Because we know we've made a model here, so we're going to be replying with a model. Else, we're going to be replying without the model. And the next thing that I need to know is if I am replying with the model, I want to know if make sure the menus are not empty. Because if the menus are not empty, then it's event dot reply model dot So we're going to defer the reply first off. Deferring the reply is going to give us some time to get back to it. So event.getHook dot we're going to be sending the message. Okay, I'm going to have to see about that. So Oh, don't worry, I won't be forgetting the git push. I really apologize for my silence on this stream, guys. Yeah, it's just taking me a lot more to think about what I'm doing than I expected. But okay, so what I've got now is, now that we've declared our options, our input model okay. Okay. So, since we're running from top to bottom here, we're going to check and see if the input fields are empty, or if they're not empty. If they're not, we're going to create our action rows to stick inside of our model, our new model, which are simply going to be basically two options: asking for a new name and asking for a new description, if applicable. If they exist, we're going to stick each of them into the action row and ask for the updated information. We're going to then reply with that model, and beneath that we're going to then continue to check and see, and if we're editing an add a book, then we're going to go into the event get hook, and we're just going to send a message to the channel asking to play. So we're not necessarily replying to it at this point. We're looking to get the channel to send a message into that chat channel saying select a book to add and select a book to remove. For the sake of it, we're actually going to make these two into eFormal messages, or eFormal, whatever the hell you pronounce that, just so that they're sort of kind of private. Now, that's it for the bookshelf edit class. Clear that up. Just doing a little bit of housekeeping here. Okay, so this does it for this. And because this live stream is getting a little bit long, we're going to call that it for this video. We're going to call that it for this live stream. Yeah, no, we're going to call it it for this live stream. Thank you very much for everybody that's been watching on both Twitch and on YouTube. I truly, truly appreciate your time tonight. It's been a pleasure doing this, covering what we've covered. Apparently I'm hitting the wrong buttons on my OBS. It's been a very long day for me, guys. Don't hold that against me. So I'm going to be making a sort of a major Git push on this one here. I'm just calling this one major frame change. I don't normally do piss poor GitHub commits. I will in one of our I will be later on in one of our videos, I will be covering more industry standard activities such as yeah, links, yeah, sure, I can definitely do a live stream about touching base on just those errors if you'd like. I was going to say I could look at that afterward just to look into it for you, but if you'd like to see kind of how I go about looking into that, then our next live stream for the Spring into Java bit, we will go ahead and add the books that you tried to add, and we'll try to recreate the error you're getting, and then we will dive into how to fix it. As for the next Midnight Coder video, we are going to be diving in a little more. We're going to dive a little more into our game that we were developing. So we're going to continue on creating our player entity and creating our back end for our players' information, as well as our stores, NPCs, items, all that sort of fun stuff. And we will then dive into creating a RESTful API on which we can interact with that, and then we'll dive on in creating the other layers of our application before we come to the service end, or the front end, which is going to be the game engine. And in our case, the game engine is Discord. Discord comes preloaded with so many things, and it is already an environment that was designed by gamers for gamers to connect gamers. Why not make an RPG inside the community? Future plans for that? Well, you'll have to pay attention and ride along with me as we go. I've got a lot of plans for that that Discord bot. Also, links just for you. I did just finish making that push, so the commit is live on for the our Spring into Boot library application. You can get that on GitHub right now. That is github.com/glabe/spring-into-java, all one word. I'll include a link of that in the description once I've finished recording. And thank you very much once again for watching. It means a lot to me that you're interested in what I'm doing. It means a lot to me that you're spending your time with me each of these evenings. I truly appreciate it. I really do. Your time is something that's invaluable. It means more than money. Money is something that can be reprinted, remade, re-earned. Time is not expendable. So thank you very much for spending your time with me. And again, it means a lot. And I will catch you next time in the next video, the next live stream, whichever comes out first. If you haven't already, I do have a Discord community that you can join and take part in. I chat in there. I'm pretty active on Discord. I'm in multiple Discords, but my official community Discord I'm beginning to be a little more active into, and I'd like to become a little more active in it and kind of grow it a little more. So if you happen to want to join my community, become one of our Midnight Coders, by all means, I will include a link to our Discord in the description if it is not already. I think I already did. But, yeah, because I'm going to start rambling if I don't cut this off soon. Thank you all, and have a great night.